So we now have our endpoint configured and registered with Cisco Unified Communications Manager as a SIP endpoint. If I go into my endpoint, I can see that the proxy server is listed at 10.1.5.15 and the status is registered. Our configuration is pretty much exactly what we had established during the exercise. We're using TCP as our transport protocol. The URI for the device is 1003 at ccnacollab.com, and our proxy server is pub. We can specify the address here if we want to, but because we have DNS set up on this device, we actually have the ability to identify that proxy through that DNS name. We have our DNS services running on 10.1.5.14, which is our Active Directory server. So very simple. If we go to find our list of phones, we see the CTS endpoint here, registered with pub. We can go into that endpoint through the interface, through the Cisco Unified Communications Manager. All the settings here were pretty much the same as what we would have with any typical device. We have a device pool that's established. We have a common profile for the phone, the calling search space, and whatnot. So everything that we expect to see with a telephony endpoint has been configured in this for this particular endpoint here. Now, you don't have to use Cisco Unified Communications Manager to register these endpoints. You can actually register these endpoints through Cisco VCS and then have a SIP trunk between Cisco Unified Communications Manager and Cisco VCS, and have VCS really act as your call control engine for all of your telepresence endpoints. In this particular case, it's just simpler for us to do the demonstration having this endpoint register with Unified Communications Manager directly. So we're going to go into our call control pane. We can use our remote control and place a call from the remote control, but we're actually going to go into the GUI of the system and go into our call control window so that we can actually place a call directly from this interface. So we'll go ahead and place a call to 1001. We'll pick up that call. And now we can see that we have the video established in both directions. The call to 1001 at 10.1.5.15. And we have some static images here so you can see the display. But the self view is, of course, our camera. That's our Precision HD 12X camera that's attached to this codec through an HDMI and control cable. And then on the remote side, it's a 9971 phone with just a standard USB camera attached to the 9971. So it works very well. Obviously, we can see a lot of the characteristics of the call. If we go into the GUI interface, and while we're on an active call, we hit this information screen, we can see that we're using SIP as our control protocol. The transmission rate is 384 kilobits per second. The receive rate is 768 kilobits per second. We're using a G722 audio codec, which is a very low loss, uncompressed audio codec at 64 kilobits a second. We can see the channel rate. It's kind of going up and down from 64 to 63K. And our video codec is H264, transmitting at 640 by 368 on the transmit side. And then we're receiving 352 by 288. And that really depends on the type of camera that you have attached to the endpoint. We're sending full motion video at 30 frames per second. And we're seeing 0% packet loss, 0 milliseconds in jitter. And again, we want to make sure that that packet loss stays below 1% and the jitter stays below 30 milliseconds. So we have really kind of a quick display of everything that is relative to this particular call. We even see the ID of the endpoint, 9971 phone 2 at extension 1001. So I can place the call on hold. I can resume the call. I can actually end the call. We'll go ahead and resume the call. Notice the video video goes away. Now, if I choose to place another call, let's see if we can do that into this endpoint. I don't have multi-point calling set up on this device, so this may not work, but let's go ahead and give it a shot anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and accept and merge the call. And this may not work, but we'll see if it works. Yeah, doesn't look like it worked in this case. We do have an audio bridge. Let me mute that. We do have an audio bridge between the three endpoints, but we're not really receiving in any video, and that's because we don't have an MCU set up. And this is not a multi-way codec. It doesn't support that multi-way function, but we do have an audio bridge. Audio is being facilitated through Unified Communications Manager as a media resource. So let me go ahead and hang up this call. And we should go back to our original call as a video call. Very basic. We didn't get into a whole lot of the details of configuring the multi-point conferencing and setting up the VCS platform, but very simple to implement this CTS codec into Unified Communications Manager as a telephony endpoint.